I'm here at AMD's Tech Day event, where the company went over their next generation Ryzen CPUs and APUs. And let's just say that I've learned a lot, from performance to overclocking, release date, and more. So let's get right to it. Welcome everyone to Gamer Meld. If you saw my most recent video, you know that I filmed it in a hotel room, and that's because I've been at AMD's Tech Day event. In fact, it's why I missed my Wednesday video, but unfortunately I wasn't allowed to say why at the time, so no, it wasn't a vacation or anything like that. Instead, I was in tons of presentations and meetings with AMD engineers, programmers, VPs, and more, and from all of that I've got a lot to discuss about the company's next generation of Ryzen products, from more benchmarks to breaking records, and of course, AI. And I'll use this as a jumping off point to say with 100% certainty that AMD is completely, unequivocally sold on AI. Throughout the multiple presentations, AMD said AI probably 100 or more times.
AI.
Don't worry though, they also shared more gaming benchmarks and a ton of other things, but I'll get to those in a few. AI is definitely the place to start. Here, AMD discussed the importance of their new NPU over both the CPU and GPU. According to them, their NPU gets a 35 times performance boost over the CPU in AI performance per watt, while the integrated GPU only gets an 8 times boost. They also quickly touched on how their XDNA engine works, going over its data flow and partitioning, as well as their block FP16, which for those who don't know, more or less gets 8-bit performance with nearly the accuracy of 16-bit. AMD next made a point to compare their AI performance to Intel's current gen. Here we have Llama V2, where they obviously crush Intel's CPU. Later they showed off a RAG demo running on their Ryzen AI chip that learned new data to get a better answer. Ultimately, AMD's next-gen APUs are decently equipped to handle local AI, and they actually have some sweet notebooks set to come with their new products, like these new models by Zeus. Now, you might be wondering if these are set to be Copilot Plus, given they technically meet the guidelines set by Microsoft, and to that, I'll say sort of. While they may not launch with it, they will eventually be Copilot Plus notebooks. And of course, that means Microsoft will likely be able to take screenshots of your PC every few seconds. Okay, maybe not, but probably definitely one day. All in all, we'll have to see where local AI goes and what kind of place they'll have among the huge cloud-based AI services. Obviously, local AI is much more secure, so there's definitely that benefit. Now, before I get to desktop chips, AMD did go over a few new things with their APUs that didn't involve AI. For one, they actually explained what made their RDNA 3.5 architecture different from RDNA 3, and as you can see, they put a focus on optimizing it for efficiency, things like improved memory management among others, meaning it's made specifically for their APUs. Not only that, but they shared some new benchmarks in content creation, productivity, and gaming, all of which they're now able to compare it to Qualcomm Snapdragon X Elite chip, and they pointed out some titles that literally can't even run on it thanks to the issues with running emulation for the ARM architecture. All in all, AMD's new Ryzen APUs are very impressive. And this brings me to AMD's Ryzen 9000 desktop CPUs. And right off the bat, I will say that AMD announced the release date without really making a big deal of it. In fact, if you weren't looking for it, you could have easily missed it. Here, the company revealed a July 31st release date, and if you're interested in picking these up, I'll have affiliate links down in the description below. They don't cost you anything more, and it helps the channel out. Also, that date means the leaks were spot on yet again, and there's actually more of that to come. But first, I wanted to go over some new benchmarks. Starting things off, we now have benchmarks on the 9600X, where you can see it crushes the 14600K in productivity and has a decent lead in games. AMD also showed something similar with the 9700X against the 14700K, as well as the 9900X and the 14900K. That's right, according to this, even AMD's 12-core CPU can beat Intel's best chip. Though of course, there are first-party benchmarks, so as always, I suggest waiting for reviews before buying. With all of that said, AMD also revealed something pretty huge about the 9700X. According to this, you can see that it beats the 5800X3D by 12% in games, which obviously isn't that big of a deal, but AMD also said this.
If you were to look at this versus a 7800X3D, again, an AM5 processor in the Zen 4 generation, you'd see a couple percentage points advantage for the 9700X. over the 7800X3D.
So yeah, according to this, the 9700X is actually faster than the 7800X3D, though just barely. That's of course different from what Mr. Donnie Walagrowski said a little while back, but what I'm thinking is that they're essentially neck and neck. According to the slide, the 9700X is 12% faster than the 5800X3D, and when we look at Tom's Hardware's review of the 7800X3D, it's around 14% faster, so it's likely so little difference that it doesn't really matter, though the productivity performance of the 9700X will of course destroy the 7800X3D, so this could end up being the ultimate chip. Oh, and apparently the CPUs have a 7-degree drop in temp at the same TDP thanks to better thermal resistance. Finally, AMD took us into an overclocking session where they revealed their new curve shaper, which if you followed the channel, you already know this was leaked a little while back. And basically, it gives you multiple more points to adjust the curve optimizer for an even better overclock. For example, with just a regular water cooler, AMD got a very impressive Cinebench R23 score of 44,668, which is around 15% faster than the 14,900K. But then they brought us over to the liquid nitrogen overclocking, where they almost immediately broke the record for a 16-core CPU in Cinebench R15, getting to 8,195 from 8,152. Then they completely destroyed the record for Cinebench R23, which was 50,843. But they were able to get to an unreal 55,296, so they flat crushed it here. Now while I was there, I confirmed that they were using X670E boards for all their overclocking, which brings me to their 800 series boards. Here, AMD actually confirmed a brand new chipset, the B840. You still have the B850, X870, and X870E, but AMD has now added the B840 as a way to get a level that's cheaper than the B850, but not all the way down to the A series. At least that's how they described it, even though they didn't yet announce an A820 board. Either way, as you can see, the B840 comes with PCI Express Gen 3, USB 3.2 with 10 gigabits per second, and allows memory overclocking only. Hopefully this will bring some cheaper board options, but given the fact that we never heard a release date, and even AMD wasn't using them for overclocking, it seems like the leaks claiming the boards would release later is likely correct. All in all, it was a great trip where I learned quite a bit more about AMD's upcoming Ryzen products. Unfortunately, we still didn't learn the price, but just about everything else was announced, so just make sure to stay tuned for the review.